You got to pick one, and you got to do the one that works with your market and your business.
Especially with branding efforts, consistency, and having the right expectation for yourself when you're investing in it is really important.
Or if you're going to do marketing, like do one thing really well and like own that thing before you go on and try and like do everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mission Control Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stearns. This is episode 7 already. Thank you for tuning in. Today we have a very, very special guest, Caleb Oberg of Oberg Roofing out of the great state of Minnesota. Welcome, Caleb.
What's up? Lucky number 7. Let's go.
Listen, man, happy to have you today, for sure. You're going to want to stick around from start to finish. We've got a great story. It's compelling, it's enticing, it's everything you could think of, dream of, and so much more. Again, thank you, Caleb. So, just to kind of give you guys some context, I met Caleb at an event that was put on, about 3 weeks ago? It was Roofing Ahead of the Curve, brought to you by TJ McCormick, the world's greatest roofer, and EuroShield, among many others. And I'm walking into the event, and we're in the lobby-ish area where vendors are getting set up. And I see this guy, and he looks like he knows his shit. All right, so obviously I'm intrigued. So me being me, we strike up a conversation. I had him like my YouTube channel. That was great. Appreciate you, Caleb. But he had a story. It was a story as far as like how he's gone about marketing his company. And it truly is unique in the sense that I have dealt with hundreds of contractors, and I don't think anyone has gone about acquiring the type of year-over-year growth that Caleb has by the means he has. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Caleb, why don't we introduce you in the sense of like, who is Caleb Oberg? How did you get started in roofing? Give the fans what they want. Let's hear it.
Right on, man. Well, I'm 41 years old, and I've spent a majority of my life in the roofing industry. I've been doing it for 22 years. And I'm a father of 4. I got 2 grandbabies. Wow. Very busy. Love doing a lot of everything: sports, shooting, hunting, you name it.
Nice.
Just got done playing a state softball tournament over the weekend. Came in 4th place. Unfortunately, we didn't take down the ship, but you know. Oberg Roofing, we started in 2017. Just been rocking and rolling ever since.
Okay, so you started right around 5 years ago. You've been in the industry for 22 years. Carry the one. So that leaves 15 years between you getting started and Oberg Roofing coming to fruition. So what was that journey like? Oh man,
it was a long journey. Started year 1, my uncle had a roofing business out in the southwest corner of Colorado. It's not the nice part of Colorado. It's kind of like the desert. Okay. And he asked me to come out there. I was 20 years old, and I was kind of in between jobs. Didn't really ever give roofing a thought because, I don't know, like my dad's history, whatever, kind of been working in like warehouses and stuff like that. He was a supervisor for many years. And I had kind of dabbled in that myself. I was kind of looking for something else. A couple of my buddies were doing framing and some other labor work, and I thought maybe, this could be something for me. So gave it a shot, went out to Colorado, spent 3 months in the spring out there. Basically I'll tell you, dude, the first roof I ever did is still to this day the worst roof I've ever done. So that's something, man, because literally every job after that, my entire roofing career as a roofing installer has been easier than the first one I did. So, and for roofers out there, you'll get this. Probably anybody. We were up on this shack up in the woods or up in the hills a little bit, and it was this old, hand-built place, and the framing on the roof, the decking was like this really thick, like 3/4 to 1 inch board. It was all, hand cut or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there was 3 layers of cedar shakes installed in this roof that all had to be torn off.
A lot of fun tearing it off, right?
The 3rd layer was nailed on with 16 penny nails. I'm telling you, I was like, I think I got, carpal tunnel on one roofing job. I don't know what possessed me to keep going. But I was like, whatever. I'm like, I'm in Colorado, right? I'm not gonna like, bail out and head home now. I'm gonna see what else is out there for me. So, yeah, I mean, it got started out there. That lasted for a few months. My uncle was planning on moving back to Minnesota anyways. It's where he was born and raised. So he came back to Minnesota. He had some connections here in the roofing industry, other companies that he would kind of subcontract from. He was also getting a few of his own jobs from some people that he knew. So I was kind of doing that. I had enough skills, and then he gave me all of his kind of equipment anyways to like continue to do roofing here. So basically found a couple of guys that wanted to work. So we did that for a little while. Ended up going down to the cities, doing some work down there in the Minneapolis area. I'm from St. Cloud, Minnesota. It's about an hour north of the Minneapolis metro area, just for context. So yeah, I mean, like that ultimately didn't go down like the greatest path. It didn't continue too much there. Eventually hooked up with a buddy that was roofing for another company in the St. Cloud area. So I moved back to St. Cloud. We had another friend that joined us. So there was like 3 of us out of the 5 guys on the crew, and we were doing a lot of new construction for this company that we were working for. We collectively became roommates, and we started talking a bunch about, how good we were at roofing. And I was like, man, this is easy. Like, we should turn this into a business, right? And so basically we had that idea. We didn't have a plan or anything. The owner of the business found out. I was kind of talking to his sister, on the weekend or whatever. I didn't know they had a talking, relationship much. They were kind of 2 different people, hung out with 2 completely different crowds or whatever. Anyway, she told him, and he fired all 3 of us. He called us into his office, said, if you're going to start your own business, you're going to do it right now. Fired us.
Wow.
So, of course, we started our own business. At this point, I'm 21 years old, and I've got 2 business partners, and this is 2001. And in my first year, and it wasn't even a full year, I made $35,000 my first year. It was more money than I had made previously doing anything before. So I was like, man, that was a success. So that kind of continued for a little bit, and then that partnership broke up, and then I started a new partnership with just the one other guy. His name was actually Caleb as well. So there was 2 Calebs roofing.
Wow.
And we were
What are the odds?
legit. Yeah, literally. So he was a good dude though. He was sober by this time, so he was like a really good positive side of him, right? When you're 21, you just want to be like working a lot, drinking a lot, partying a lot.
Yeah.
But we'd hang out and party, but he'd keep stuff legit.
Nice.
So did that for a while. Eventually that company, and the ideas or whatever that everybody else had was going in a different direction. I decided that I didn't want to start a construction company building houses and this was in like 2007, maybe 2007. And I could kind of see the market wasn't really going to continue to go on the way it was going. So I decided to hook up with the company, the owner that fired me originally, and see if I could potentially go work for him again. And with welcome arms, he welcomed me in and made me crew lead right away. And that was cool because he already had an established crew. They were kind of like bucking me or whatever, and I basically told him, I said, look, if any one of you guys can put on more square per hour than I can, I'll gladly give you the job. You can keep it, whatever. It's yours. You know what I mean? They're like, well, who are you? Yeah, they're like, who are you to even say like that? And I'm like, well, I'm your boss, technically. The owner told me I'm your boss. So, wager was on the board. Nobody could even touch me. So, I established, my hierarchy from there.
Sure.
It's pretty cool. I mean, that was like the old days, right? Like these guys get together and, we really were good roofers. We're like, we could shingle really fast. We killed it every day. So that went on for a good till the next year, and then the next year I fell 2 stories off of a roof and severely injured my shoulder, broke 3 bones in my lower back.
Jesus.
And yeah, the employment status was very sketch back then. I wasn't technically an employee. I was basically being paid under the table in cash, and so there was no work comp, there was no anything. So the owner in some fashion decided, hey, I'm just going to give him a company vehicle and I'm going to create a position in my company for him to be the production manager. I guess I looked at it as just an opportunity. I didn't want to look at it in a bad way. I needed to make money. I needed to support my children that I had. I had twin daughters that I needed to support. So I looked at it as an opportunity to grow and learn more about this industry that I still actually, was really into. I just needed to know more and do more. And I thought it was it's a good opportunity, right? Like,
Yeah.
my mind was always kind of like looking for the next thing. Was always an overachiever. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to be crew lead. I always wanted to be like at the top of the level of everything that was in front of me. I mean, yeah, I felt like I kind of got kicked backwards being a production manager rather than like the crew lead, but it's what I could do at the time. So fully embraced that. The owner, I looked to him for some advice on what to do and how to do it. He basically said, look, just figure it out. If anything, you're going to do it better than I do it currently, because he was doing everything else, right? And so he's like, this is your sole job. He's like, you'll probably figure out how to do it better than I did. So I was like, whoa, okay.
Nice vote of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was either that. Either that or he literally just didn't have a clue, like how to train somebody on what he was doing.
Sure.
He didn't have the time or whatever. So was doing that for a few months. And then all of a sudden we got the biggest hailstorm ever that hit our market, hit right in our back door. And so we were, the company was working out of the basement of his house right in the town that got completely demolished by hail.
Wow.
So now, I'm hiring more roofers. I'm trying to find subcontractors. Trying to schedule jobs and work with suppliers, and seeing all these other companies come in from out of town, which was just absolutely insane to me. There was companies coming in from out of state all over the country. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
So then the leads and the need for like selling or whatever became so much and too overwhelming, and the owner didn't know how to sell or recruit or hire a salesperson. So he said, okay, now you're going to do sales too. And I'm like, with what time?
Yeah.
I'm already doing all the production, and I'm hiring crews to try and keep up with the sales that you're already getting. Like every one of the neighbors up and down the street, obviously was going with that company, and then it was all over. And so he's like, well, just go knocking on doors and like, put some yard signs down just to let other contractors know that we're going to be doing these jobs. And I'm like, I don't know how to sell. He's like, well, yeah. So, this was like, the entire thing was just like, just figure it out, dude. So
you get thrusted into the PM role, baptism by fire. And since that worked out so well, we're going to run that back on the sales side.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, good.
I'm like, okay. So, I didn't even know that insurance was going to be any different from retail, and I didn't even really know what sales was like anyways. All I had really to support what I would say to the customers was I knew what hail damage looked like because I went on a few roofs just to try and establish that as a baseline. And I knew all of the things that went into actually installing a roof and doing it the right way, because I'd been doing that already for like 7 years, right? So
sure.
I just kind of talked about those things, and I was just trying to be myself. And it was very receptive to everybody, right? So there was a lot of other nuances that happened with storm stuff and all that kind of threw me for a lot of curveballs.
Yeah, I think that that situation kind of get thrown in with, I guess, limited practical experience. It allows more authenticity to kind of bleed through, right? Where you're just coming from a place of trying to help you understand what the damage looks like. Like, you may not be an expert in the claims process, let's say from start to finish, but if somebody feels like you're there to help them, and they can forge some sort of relationship with you. I think that, sometimes that can be really, really helpful in the absence, especially of practical knowledge. And some would even argue at some point that you can load up on all the product knowledge and the process of it and really inundate and lose people because of that, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely holds true. Like, what is it, like listen more than you speak type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go off, and because I had a million stories about everything that I ran into as a roofer.
Yeah.
So they were just like, man, I don't even have a chimney on my roof. And I'm like, oh, well.
But if you did,
Yeah.
and if you ever do in the future, you're welcome. Yeah, that's awesome. So, dude, let's stop for a moment. Let's talk about the fact that, okay, so you fell off a 2-story building,
Mm-hmm.
shoulder injury, broken back. Like, I feel like we kind of just glossed over that, so we can get back to the rest in a moment. But I definitely want to hone in on that for a second. So, like, what was that like? What were the circumstances surrounding that? Tell us all about it.
So, so we were working on this this large retirement building. It was kind of like an apartment for retired people, and we were behind the gun. And there was a guy that I was teamed up with to tear off and dry in and shingle his section, and that guy, for whatever reason, was afraid. It happened to be a 712 pitch roof. We didn't use any safety measures back then. I've always been pretty fearless, and didn't really care. Nobody told me I had to do it. The owner didn't tell me I had to do it, so I wasn't going to do it. So the other guy, unfortunately, didn't have the same no fear attitude. I'm down there on the bottom row, putting on the ice and water shield. We'd already torn off, cleaned up, all that stuff. I'm rolling it out. I was like, I had taken 2 of those 16-ounce NOS energy drinks. I think they still make those. You ever seen those?
Yeah, I get a little jittery. Yeah.
Yeah.
They pack a punch.
So, like I it was just like, that's just the way I was, man. Like, energy drinks just to get me going, keep that drive high. And, I was down there, like, expecting him to come and help me. And he was up there, like, afraid and didn't want to come down there. And so I was even more pissed and, like, going faster than I needed to. So I'm rolling out the ice and water shield, pulling the plastic and balling it up as I go. And I'm going really fast. And a little bit of that plastic just kind of got out of control. And I stepped on it and instantly just slipped. And because I was right at the edge of the roof, I hit the deck and fell off. And it happened so fast, So, I mean, there I am on the ground, looking up at the dude that was up there watching me work that I'm pissed off at, and I'm like, luckily I landed on grass, like lawn or whatever. There was like a divot this deep from my elbow. And it just so happened I always wore my hammer on the back. And I had the hammer loop or whatever, so I think that's the reason why I broke the bones in my lower back. And my shoulder hurt worse than anything. I thought my shoulder was dislocated, so I was telling the dude, I'm like, can you just like check out my shoulder blade, see if it's sticking out, like just maybe pull my arm or something. And he's like, dude, he's like, no. He's like, I'm not touching you. Your shoulder blade's not sticking out. You need to go to the hospital.
Right.
So, I mean, right then and there, everything that's going through my head is like, man, I might be done roofing. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do anymore. I've spent the last 7 years. It's the longest I've done anything in my life.
Right.
Working in this industry, 6 or 7 years, right? It was right around there. I mean, I was worried about, providing for my family and all that kind of stuff. I knew that there wasn't any work comp. I knew it was shady. We were getting paid under the table. There was a lot of questions. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that go through somebody's head when you know that there's no real security. You're working an hourly job working for some guy who doesn't have his shit together, and he's not paying you very much money anyways. So
Yeah, that had to be incredibly unnerving.
so it took me like a month just to be able to raise my arm like this, right? So I didn't even know if I'd ever even be able to roof again. Could have potentially have gone back and had surgery, but the fact that I didn't have health insurance and there was no work comp, I never did. So I mean, yeah, to this day I still feel it.
So what was the diagnosis on the shoulder? Was it broken?
My shoulder was it was just like torn muscles and potentially some ligaments, but they didn't do like they did like a scan or whatever, but
Quick in and out because you didn't have insurance?
well, I spent the night in the hospital. I mean, all in all, I think all the medical expenses was right around $3,500 back then, so it wasn't crazy. I just knew that I couldn't afford to go back to the hospital or the clinic to get some additional work done. So I just basically dealt with it. You know, I wore a sling around for about a month or two, and
That's tough.
yeah.
So after the rehab, you're back into it, able to get somewhat close to full range of motion?
Yeah, no, I'm good now. I mean, like I said, I still play sports. I'm still very active.
Yeah.
Go hunting a lot. I mean, I just deal with the pain, you know.
Sure.
I go to the chiropractor quite regularly. I get massages all the time. So.
Gotcha. So, yeah, sorry I digressed there, but I felt like that definitely warranted having a quick conversation and elaborating a bit. So, you're still running as the PM of the company, and this is year what? At this moment that you're the kind of the project manager.
First year, I only did it for like 1 year.
Okay.
Basically, at that company, I'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah. And then you're asked to kind of move into sales. You've got your authentic self out selling people during this wicked storm with tons of competitors fleeing to the scene from out of town, outside of your state, right?
Yeah, I think I should say too that, you know, in the business that I had before with my partners, just to be clear, we only did subcontracting and a majority of it was new construction.
Okay.
So there was major new construction boom. There was almost no sales that we did on our own. We had taken on a few jobs that were just kind of given to us, but there was no sales involved. And because I had two other partners, I wasn't even the person that like did that interaction or did that selling. So I still had no knowledge of any of that. It was just me. It was always just show up, you know, recruiting, training, shingling, tear off, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
I was like, there was three partners, and I think it was like a 40-30-30 split. So
okay, gotcha.
I was on the 30 end of it.
Yeah, he said I was on the 30. Got it. So, in this new position that, you know, PM involved in the sales, now you're wearing both hats. How long did that last?
It lasted until the following year. There was some changes that the owner wanted to make through some roofing business in a box thing that he did, and he was looking at what their recommendation was to pay me, and so then my pay would have been dramatically less by like, I think it was around $10,000 in that year than the previous year. Jeez. And it just wasn't going to sit well with me. I had actually sold a job on my own for like an HOA for $585,000, and even with the $8,000 bonus that I was getting for that job in that following year, because that's when we produced it,
yeah, I
was still making $10,000 less than I did the previous year, and so that just didn't sit well with me. And I was also having relationship issues, and man, I mean, things went sideways fast. So there was some big issues between me and the owner. He was also actively trying to sell his business, and he was taking me along with all these meetings and stuff like that. And you know, everybody in the community thought I was co-owner of the business, and I wasn't. And so I felt very disrespected in many ways, that I was never even an option to bring me to the table as ownership, as much as I had done to build this company. And it left a really bad taste in my mouth. And so between my own personal actions that were taken in the kind of dark hole I was going down, and my disagreements with the owner, I quit and he fired me about at the same time. Literally, like, I couldn't say I quit fast enough. He said I was fired. And I was like, oh, if you want to pay me unemployment, we can leave the firing thing, stick or whatever.
Interesting. So officially, did you quit, or did he pull back on the firing thing so he didn't have to pay you unemployment just for inquiring minds?
Officially, we left on the fact that he fired me. And when it came time to get unemployment, I was denied, and then I appealed, and it was denied. So,
jeez,
I've never received a penny of unemployment in my life, which is fine. I
Sure.
work for everything that I get. So
yeah, absolutely. So, and at that time, did you have a contingency plan in place? Was it still 2 kids at the time?
Yep.
So you got 2
Yep,
kids. Yep.
Yeah,
No
2
longer
kids, no
employed.
contingency plan. Yeah, I had to take some time off. That was my only contingency, is trying to assess, what I was going to do next, where I was going to go, see if I was going to stay in the industry or not. And I actually went a different direction altogether, kind of. I was still in construction, but a friend of mine had gone on to work in the tower industry. So he was working for a company that was building towers. Some of them were the guide wire towers that went straight up, and other ones were self-supporters for the state of Minnesota. We also did a bunch of other like antenna and like cellular site installs, and pretty much did everything. So did that for a while. It was going really, really good. I became crew lead within about 8 months. I got to have my own crew to build my own site for a 330-foot self-supporting tower for the state of Minnesota. It was a really cool industry to be in. I was in the best shape of my life. At this point, I was 29. This was in 2009. So did it for a year and a half, and ended up getting fired again. So yeah, it was a toxic industry as far as the people that worked in it, and you traveled a lot. And the other guys in the company that saw me kind of like get to that point so fast didn't agree with it, and there was a lot of back talking behind my back about whether or not I should be getting paid what I'm getting paid, and whether or not I should be getting my own sites for this for building those towers. They were all prevailing wage, and I'd been on several crews building several of those towers because I was a favorite at the time amongst all the crew leads. So
Sure.
but whatever, they disagreed with it, and something happened on a site that my crew up on the tower didn't secure some stuff properly. Some of the equipment fell, damaged the fence. They also said that I was at a bar when I wasn't, because we use company vehicles. So ultimately, I got fired. Said, well, whatever, your loss. Then I had to reassess again. Took some time off, and then I started a different business with a partner. Funny story as it may be, with the same guy that was on the roof that was watching me fall off the roof. I ended up starting a business with him.
Plot twist.
Several years. So yeah, but he was a good roofer. Actually, he ended up being a really good roofer. He had some of his own demons, but we figured, I was like, whatever, man, I got one guy that wants to roof with me. I think I can start a business with this. But I was like, this time, I'm going to become a licensed general contractor, and I'm going to do marketing and sales, and I'm going to do all of our own work. And I'm going to try to work out a way to do less subcontracting, and I'm going to do branding and all this stuff. And that was the plan at the time. Struggled with that for about 5 years. Ended up separating from that partnership within about a year in. I think we got through one season, and then that guy's demons caught up with him again, and we had to separate, go our separate paths. And eventually there was too many issues with that business name I was operating under, with him trying to still operate under it. And there was a customer of his that alleged we stole a cell phone from him, and jeez. I was like, man, I don't even know what you're talking about. So eventually I had to change that business name. And then right about that time period, my current business partner had approached me, and I knew him from playing softball. It's something I've been doing since I was like 17 years old. And he was a salesman for another company, and he was having some conflicts with working with them, and the work wasn't steady, and he was looking for somebody else that he could go do sales for. So ultimately he's like, well, look, you need a new business name. And I was like, yep. He's like, well, if you get a new business name and we start to figure this out, he's like, I'd love to come sell for you. And that's when Oberg Roofing started in 2017. We were talking about it in 2016. January 1, 2017, Oberg Roofing and Remodeling was a brand new business, and I had a whole new vision for everything that was going to happen from that day forward.
Man, that's awesome. That's you took the scenic route, it builds character, folks, right? I think it's important to note, no matter how great of ideas we have and the way that things are going to play out in our minds, there's always that underlying potential that shit will get burnt to the ground, right? Things will happen, life will happen, they'll throw curveballs at you, and you're going to feel really shitty about those things. But it's really important to be able to persevere, to be able to cope, and to be able to keep pushing. A lot of boxing coaches will say, bite down on your mouth guard and keep moving forward, as those blows are getting thrown at you, and pick your spot, fire back, right? I mean, that's exactly what you did, right? And I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I wanted to learn, right? Wanted to learn from everything. I've always been cognizant of learning from any mistakes that I made, and other people's mistakes are actually more valuable to me than learning from my own. So started to pick up that kind of trait, right? To see what other people were messing up.
Sure.
So I'd make less mistakes of my own.
Yeah, no, that's really important, because it's great to know what to do, but it's also important to know what not to do. So, life lessons with Caleb here at the Mission Control Podcast. Love it. So, all right, so now Caleb Oberg starts Oberg Roofing with your business partner. Now business partner? Was he business partner at the time?
Now business partner. He was a 1099 salesman for me at the time.
Love
it. I took him on as a partner in 2020. So
what was the I guess the swing vote to finally say, you know what, I'm not going to do what my old boss did, to where I resented him because I'd done so much for the company? What was his contribution that made it make sense to say, you know what, I want you to be a part of this thing for the long haul. I want you to be vested part of it.
It was a lot of things with having him to be fully invested in what I wanted to do was to let him know that I was gonna go full on in with a marketing plan to make sure that he didn't have to go out knocking doors every day. I knew that's something that we had to do at the beginning because literally we were starting brand new. And so he was totally on board with that. He's like, dude, I'll go knock doors. He's like, my goal is just to keep you and your crew booked out the whole summer. And so he had that, ingrained in him. He's like, I can't let Caleb down. I got to make sure these guys are busy. I got to make sure we're selling roofs. And, he was a cradle to the grave roofer, right? He did the sales, ordering the materials, communicating with the homeowners. I think even pulling permits and ordering dumpsters. And I got to show up and roof the jobs, schedule my crews, pay the payroll, pay Chad his commissions, and keep all the finance together. I was doing all the marketing stuff to try and infuse some of that and brand building and man, I worked a lot of 14-hour days just trying to figure out, how to put this whole thing together, the right way, and a lot of that too was just making sure everybody was paid every Friday. It was a luxury I almost never had in this industry, was making sure I had a good paycheck every Friday. So I was always the last one to get paid, man, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you mean you weren't an overnight success, like the haters will say?
No, man. Our first year sales, we actually did like $330,000 in sales. So I thought that was huge.
Yeah.
That was all our own.
So you said that your partner's name's Chad?
Yep.
Where would, without having Chad in the early stages and now especially, where do you think Oberg Roofing would be? Do you think you'd be anywhere close to where you are today?
No, man. The first thing, absolutely. That was the first best thing for me as somebody that was in the trades, trying to figure out how to like make this thing grow right from the start, was to have a dedicated salesperson.
Yeah.
And the second person I hired in the following year was another salesperson. Mm. So the only other person after that was a production manager. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's really good insight, especially, for at the time a young business owner, right? I think it's really important to understand your limitations, and I don't mean that from a place of you can't sell. There's a million other things that have to be done within that business, any business, especially roofing, right? And especially if you're dealing with claims like in Minnesota. There's so much that has to be done within that back-end administrative follow-up to where, one person, you just can't do it all, right? You'll be destined to burn out in no time. So I think it's really important, for anyone out there who's in the midst of that dogfight or is going to be starting a business, especially within roofing in the near future, be mindful of that. Be very mindful as far as what your capacity is, what you will and won't be able to do, and what you want to delegate, and finding the right people to delegate to. It's easy for me to sit here in a room with Caleb and talk about how he did it, and it sounds a lot easier than it's going to be. You're going to break some eggs and make that omelet, as I like to say. But those are really important fundamental aspects of running a successful business. So job well done. That's awesome.
That is huge. No lie, man. I do still enjoy, or I did enjoy sales for a long time. I just knew it wasn't my strong suit. I had like one semi-formal sales training ever, and it was like this. It was part of that roof in a box thing that the previous company I worked for did. There was this $1 million sales training or something like that. We flew somewhere and did like a 2-day class, but
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not a salesman, man. I'm just me, right? And I knew roofing. That's all. So I knew that's not something I was passionate about. I was passionate about the roof being done properly, the homeowner having a good experience and being notified, to make sure that we were putting on a good quality product, right? And just to kind of like how that thing grows, right? Like building a brand and a company meant so much to me at this point in my life. I wanted to get it right, like no matter what. I wasn't gonna mess it up this time. I put my name on the company, and I wrapped my trucks, and I was like, this is it. This is happening. Like,
I love that shit.
There's no going back.
So, let's talk about that, man. So you're all in. You have that. You've got your name attached to it. So, maybe that fuels you a little bit more to be like, this thing cannot fail, right? Because now it's my name plastered all over. It's my reputation. Maybe that made a difference. Maybe it didn't. But now Oberg Roofing is everywhere. You talk about the brand, right? You talk about building a brand and you wanting that to happen. So what was your path to making Oberg Roofing what it is today?
The path, so it started out a little wonky, right? Like Home Advisor and Angie's List and Thumbtack were out there. I think Yellow Book was doing some stuff. I tried a few things. All of them were absolute trash. I was mostly just spinning my wheels, but the good thing is I spent a majority of that doing those things in the previous company that I had tried starting up. And I was getting leads, but I was having to like go to the leads in the evening or get to them before somebody else, and being a roofer, and there was a lot of things. Like I was roofing every day and trying to still be on my phone to capture those leads that were coming through, and they were still so garbage. The people I was even competing with were worse than my small company, right? They were like the true chuck in the trucks, like just
Right.
terrible. So I didn't know how to differentiate myself at the time, nor did I have the funds to do so. So, when starting Oberg Roofing, the first year was trying to figure out Google and Facebook. So I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out those things and see, what was working and what wasn't. And so I took those things on by myself. I don't know. I love like the technology and the, getting in there and just getting my hands dirty and like trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And I felt like it could have lended to my experience going forward, just to be able to know like what to look for if I were to hire somebody in the future to do it. So
Of course.
started doing those things. It was actually working. By the time we got to 2018, I had gone to the radio station to talk to them about doing some radio advertising, and still it sounded really expensive, and I figured I was going to try it anyways. I couldn't go all in like I had heard, but and I don't know why like the radio station was the next thing. I just figured like, look, there's no other roofing companies in my market actually doing it. And I think when they do it, it's very, very short-lived, and they're just trying to say some kind of message or do some kind of a special, but I don't think that they were doing it very well. They didn't have a jingle. They didn't, it wasn't like constant, like all year long or whatever, or all season long for Minnesota. And
Sure.
so I just looked at it as a space that I could like get into. And I did hear something from somebody that said, like, if you're going to do something in as far as marketing goes, or if you're going to do marketing, like do one thing really well and like own that thing before you go on and try and like do everything. So I can't remember the book. I think it's called The One Thing or whatever, where they talk about not trying to be really good at everything, but like really doing one thing really well. So that was radio for me. And after like dabbling with it a little bit in my first year, I did see some upticks on the day that I was doing it in my Google Analytics, because what I did do is I sent all the traffic to my website. So and I found a really good partner for a website. So the website that I got, the company that built it focused on roofing companies, and so I felt like partnering with somebody that spoke my language really benefited to actually building a quality website that was going to benefit me as a roofing contractor. So we had a form on the website. I sent everybody to my website. That form captured all those leads, and I sent all those leads to my sales team. So now we had like we started to get a funnel, right? And once I found out that the marriage between those two things, like the radio and the website, was so kick-ass, I started seeing the Google organic search go up, so much so that Oberg Roofing has, since we started doing radio, been our most searched and found or whatever keyword than anything ever is Oberg or Oberg Roofing. That's
Branding,
always
baby,
been-
huh?
Yeah, so like our organic is crazy, just because of the radio, right? So in between those seasons, then I got invited from the radio place that I was advertising with to go to this conference. It was called Brands Formation. And there was a speaker that was speaking that actually wrote a book, and it was all about like building a brand and like telling a story in building a brand. And when I was at that, is where I came up with the phrase that we still use to this day is your friend in the roofing business. So I don't know if you've ever heard of any other companies or businesses in general using that, but I had kind of heard it before. So I had to ask if I could use that, and I got the all clear, all good. And so what I tried to do in telling that story was that we're not a typical roofing contractor that you need to be afraid to hire to come and do your job. You know, we are your friend in the roofing business because we're going to do what we say what we're going to do, and we're going to give you the product that we say we're going to, and we're going to do good work. We're not going to, we're not going to do any shady stuff, right? It was like trying to build that storyline of like, look, you can trust us.
Sure.
There's too many bad companies out there, and there still was, at that time, that really just needed to get weeded out. That would steal people's money. They wouldn't pull permits. They wouldn't do good installs. We were constantly getting repair calls from other companies and in the terrible work that they did. And so that's really like the story and the branding that I wanted to build. Is like, we're your friend in the roofing business. Let's go.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really glad that we didn't meet back then, because I would have told you a year or two you're crazy for investing all your money in a radio. And I mean, I guess we would have known what would have happened had you done it, but that definitely would have Oberg Roofing would have taken a different path. So I'm glad that we got to meet when we did, and that you were wildly successful. And it's super intriguing to me, because that's not. If you put a post out or you talk to 500 roofing companies that have done radio and you talk about their experience, I think the overwhelming majority will say they've had an unfavorable experience. Now, you had hit on a couple different things that I think are really important. You mentioned a jingle, and you mentioned consistency. Mm-hmm. So, especially with branding efforts, consistency and having the right expectation for yourself when you're investing in it is really important, because far too often do people, and goes to as far as any business, they invest in something that's branding related, not acquisition driven, right? Where the end goal is to build your brand, but they pay for it for a couple months, and they get real finicky if it's not working right away. That's not how branding works, right? Like you said, right. You're trying to build that trust and that authority in your market. And the same person might hear you 19 times, 37 times before they decide to call you, because they may not have a need right then and there, and that's fine. But when you're cultivating the growth of your brand and the authority that it has as it's perceived by your target market, it takes time, and you can't abandon it early. You have to stick with it. Caleb, can you sing your jingle for us? Would you do it? Will you sing your jingle?
You got a friend in the roofing business at Oberg Roofing and Remodeling. Oberg.
Bam! There you have it, folks. Dude, so where did you come up with the jingle?
I hired a company to do it, and we went through a process of trying to figure out something that I would actually enjoy listening to over a long journey of time. So they're like, well, what kind of music do you listen to? Like, what do you want to be in what do you want to have in the jingle? Like, what do you want to say, right? And so, I like rock and roll, and I like old rock, new rock, kind of southern rock, all that kind of stuff. So they're like, how about Leonard Skinner and Kid Rock mix? And I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, so that's what it is, And because of what it is, like, it can play on any station. Like, I think the second radio station that we started branding on, like that we went full on with a schedule with, was a country radio station. Nice. And there's a science to that too, with like the right station with the right clientele that you're trying to market to. If anybody's looking to get into it, I would tell you straight up, like, go straight to country, man. Those people are great customers. They're great people, and they got money. So they don't spend it all on beer and trucks. I guarantee it.
You make a really good point, and I think one that's worth shining a light on a little bit more, not only just in the context of radio, but you have to understand, based on where you're placing your efforts, from whether it's marketing, advertising, branding, acquisition, you have to understand, like, being contextually relevant based on who's in that space that you're advertising to. So the people that are on Instagram aren't the same people that are on Facebook, aren't the same people on TikTok, aren't the same people on radio. So having your brand messaging aligned contextually with who's on the other end of those airwaves or that smartphone or whatever it is that they're going to be accessing your brand messaging with is really, really important and can make a huge difference as far as the outcome of your advertising or branding efforts.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, like everything was going so crazy, even back in like 2018, 2019, right? Like my still thought process was at one point, like, do I need a website? Like everybody's on social media, but I'm like, well, it's not everybody or whatever. So then, you know, it's like, well, we should probably get a website. And then it was like thinking about radio going, well, I mean, like I stream, I do Pandora, like I don't listen to the radio all the time. You know, how many people are actually listening to the radio these days? And I was like, you know what, like no lie, there's like a lot of people still listen to the radio, like especially, you know, like you think about fleet vehicles, those people don't have Bluetooth, right? So they're having to listen to the radio all the time. Those are working class people, those are my customers, right? Mm-hmm. So like there were so many things that I checked the boxes and I was like, this actually I think is really going to work. And I mean, not gonna lie, the radio advertising doesn't cost as much at St. Cloud as it does in like the St. Paul, Minneapolis area, right?
Yeah.
So it still is affordable, and I mean I know that like you can get a roof sold for like way more than you can down in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area than you can in the St. Cloud area, but I'm not even sure like that it would even be affordable to do, or as affordable in the early time as I was in my business to do the radio advertising.
So is St. Cloud, part of my ignorance, is St. Cloud a little bit more rural?
Well, the St. Cloud is a collection of cities. It's right around like 6 or 7 cities. They're all clumped together.
Okay.
Collectively, I think that the population, the inner city population within that area is probably right around 300,000 people.
Okay.
And then a lot of rural, you know, and towns that spread out from there right around like 10, 15, 20, 30 miles away. There's a lot of smaller towns around the St. Cloud area. So
gotcha.
Not a huge market, but I mean, radio is still a big deal. Here's the example. I am currently on 8 radio stations that broadcast in the St. Cloud area out of probably about 20 or more, 24. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So even in this smaller market, there's still like a lot of radio stations. So there's a lot of listeners. The only reason those radio stations stay in business is for people that actually advertise with them. We pay all their bills.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, they don't have a business.
Sure. So I would, and this is strictly a hypothesis, there's no fact-based reasoning associated with this, but my hypothesis would be the closer you are within like a metropolitan or city setting, the less likely people would be to tune into radio. And do you think I'd be way off base in saying that?
Totally.
Let's go. Let me hear it.
Dude, it doesn't matter, like, I don't know, maybe, I haven't looked at, like, every market across the United States and how it is, but there's, radio stations are not going out of business, okay? You can do the research on that alone. Radio stations are not going out of business, and it's because radio is not dead. It is a really good place to advertise your business, okay? And one of the best ways to do it is being consistent, and providing a good message and having a jingle to have that audio tune that gets stuck in people's head. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people tell me that they cannot get our jingle out of their head. It's stuck.
Yeah.
It's stuck. People tell me that they think I'm on the radio every day of the week all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking, man. They're like, you're on every day. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm on.
Yeah, we didn't do that package. I can assure you we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on 8 stations, 3 days of the week, the same days of the week on every single radio station, the same amount of times every single day on every single radio station. So the consistency is down. So there's 2 days out of the week, the weekday, that I don't even do any radio advertising on, and I don't do it on the weekends either.
Why?
Because the other days work. I don't know why try and go outside of something that I know already works so well. And I think on the weekends is when people spend a lot of time together with their families, and they don't have that commute time or that time to themselves to even like be that cognizant of like the radio ads that are on.
Sure.
Right. So, if they're traveling, their kids might have tablets on, or they're listening to kids music, or they're staring at the passenger staring at their phone anyways, and they're doing their social media, or maybe they're listening to a podcast or whatever. And then, maybe
Mission Control podcast.
Yeah.
They're not listening.
And maybe mom or dad is listening to their Pandora, or they're listening to a game, whether it's football, college football, or basketball. There's a lot of sports that are being played on the weekends, whether it's college or professional.
Sure.
So it just takes away from more of the opportunities for listeners, I think, on the weekends. So
as far as and that's a really good point. I think those are really good intuitions to have, and they make a lot of sense. As far as the weekdays, have you always deployed on the same 3 days, on the same 3 times? Have you kind of tested out different time slots to understand what difference this has made? Have you A/B tested? Were you doing radio before the jingle and after? These are all the things that get me super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Year one, no jingle. We tested a few different days of the week just to see, the traction. Mostly it had to do with tracking it on our Google and our website leads, because there's no other way to track radio. So I knew that the only way I could do it, there's 2 ways, right? So like you can offer up a phone number that you can have tracked that's specifically for radio, right? But I'm like, well, who's going to sit there and like write down a number, right? Or you have to have like such a catchy phone number that like people will never forget it, right? But that takes time to build that kind of thing, and I wanted results immediately. So I knew that if I sent people to my website, that my website was good enough, I was going to be able to capture those leads. So it was a marriage between the two. I'm like, I have a kick-ass freaking website, man. I'm telling you. I was like, this thing is legit. I got everybody in my market beat, hands down. And this was like in my first year of business. I already had the best website, and by year 2, my SEO was ranked number 1 out of all my competition in the market. Page 1, everything, just dominating. So I paired the two together, right? I don't think I could have done it without one or the other.
Sure.
So tried a few different days, and then also was trying to listen to the people at the radio station to see kind of what worked, and ultimately, like, I don't know if it was from some of the research that I did or just kind of like paying attention, but like I came to them in year 2, and I was like, I want to do a consistent branding on one radio station, and I want it to be 3 different days of the week. And I picked the days, and I told them, and they were like, we were actually going to pitch you that exact same thing. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So right from the start, they were thanking me for being prepared and like knowing what I wanted and all that stuff. And I was like, this is cool. I like these people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one station turned into into 3, and then now, like I said, we've done 10 radio stations at a time before, and then just through like some of the deals or whatever, we're down to 8. So probably look to expand. I mean, we're hitting the major ones. We've got like 2 different country ones. We got a Christian radio station, we got a light station, we got a news station, we got a sports station, we got a rock station. I mean, we're hitting all the spectrums, right?
Sure. Are you doing just spots? Are you doing endorsements by like the personality or the DJ? What is the approach?
Yeah, good question. Yep. So we have done some deals with some of the DJs. One of the cool programs, and I mean, you got to talk to the, the radio companies that might be in your market. The one that we work with, they give their employees a discount for basically buying our services through this thing called Marketplace. So we kind of do like a trade deal.
Nice.
So I went into that knowing that I was going to spend a certain amount anyways, and so we started doing the Marketplace thing. So now we've had probably over the years, we've had about 16 customers that were employees of the radio station.
Wow.
And so a few of them were DJs, and so we did like some separate things where they would be like, we did some really fun stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I like to have fun with the radio advertising.
Yeah.
So we would make it like enjoyable, where I'd have kids, or teenagers that would come up to me and tell me like, dude, your radio stations are so much fun, or your radio advertisements are so much fun to listen to. Like, you guys are having so much fun in there. Like, oh my gosh, like it's just like when I'm not listening to the radio, like I enjoy your commercials. And I was just like, boom, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's make it fun. So yeah, I mean, we did that, right? We worked with those DJs and we did their projects. Like we do remodeling too. So one of them, it was actually a couple that are on the same radio station that have two different shows. They're married. We finished their basement for them. They did some social media stuff on their side too to kind of like help with the boosting. It obviously like was like a side deal and costed a little bit more money, but it totally worked. It completely kicked off, and this was a time when we were starting to really like grow our remodeling side, and it completely freaking exploded, man.
Wow. That's awesome.
I haven't even done any remodeling advertising since I did that. I don't
Really?
do it on Google. I don't do it. Yeah. Now it's just referrals and I don't know, just having the conversation with our customers that we already do roofing and siding services for.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you guys do remodeling too, right? And I'm like, yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What can you guys do? It's like, well, we do everything, like we'll finish a basement, we'll do a bathroom, we'll do a kitchen, we'll, whatever.
So do you ever fear that like in offering all those services, you had mentioned before how kind of alluded to, you don't want to be, it was in a different context, you don't want to be the jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like if you want to do something, lock in on it, become really, really good at it, and focus on that, and then kind of move out. Do you ever fear that like your branding becomes diluted if you're offering all these different services to the community?
Nope. We started in roofing, and I developed such a seamless process for estimating and selling and producing all of the roofing that we do. We have one guy, a production coordinator, that manages 100% of our roofing and does it with absolute ease. We've got a really good relationship with our subcontractors that we use. We've had strong relationships with them for years, and so we don't really have to do too much searching on that aspect. So we really nailed it on the roofing side, created like the best systems, processes, everything for sales all the way through, right? That it's actually so easy. If I was only doing roofing and I only wanted to do like, maybe a few million a year in like one market,
Yeah.
I could go live on an island somewhere and manage my company from my laptop.
So I'm assuming, again,
I don't like being bored.
sure, and listen, I go crazy when I'm bored, so I'm always getting distracted by something. That's why podcasting's great for me. I love it. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. This is awesome.
So you didn't wake up in 2017 when you launched Oberg Roofing Remodeling and say, okay, like we've got these bulletproof process for everything, right? So like, let's talk about, and I think this will be really helpful to a lot of people. Let's talk about like what were some of the pain points? What was the from growing your company and as things began to come to fruition and kind of morph into what you are today? What were different components that were really integral and really, really important as part of that? And whether it be bringing out help from the outside, is it watching YouTube, is it following certain people? Feel free to give shameless plugs. because ultimately we just want to help the viewers. Who and what played a pivotal role in that growth as far as your systems and processes?
Yeah, man, it's that's actually huge. I spent a lot of time on YouTube and just trying to follow other people in the industry. It was a really good time to start a roofing company and and still do like retail and insurance work. Dimitri was giving out so much free information on YouTube. I think it was right around 2018. I think maybe I found Dimitri 2018 or 2019. Really just started following him. I had never got any of his products or any of his help because I think he gave so much information for free on YouTube. And he was really a person watching him. I was like, there's a lot of these things that I can do really easily, like creating videos, just kind of like doing stuff right. There was a lot, right? And then all of the other people that he worked with too. So I started seeing Adam Sand come around here and there. And I think Adam Sand spoke at his conference and, I think it was just before COVID. I had the want and need to meet Adam Sand. I think it was SVG. I ended up going out there. I knew he was going to be out there. He was starting to do something with somebody that didn't end up working anyways. But I knew he was going to be there at a booth. So
sure.
I had a goal. Like my only goal was to go out there and meet Adam Sand. Nice. So went out there and I kept stalking his booth. He was never there, and so I was like, where is this guy, man? And I went over there one time and there was 3-4 people standing around him. So I couldn't ever get to talk to him. Finally, I just sat there and hung out and waited for him to come by. And I went right up to him and introduced myself. And I'm like, dude, I've been following you, and I really enjoy just kind of listening to you, talk about what you're doing and stuff, because he was doing a lot of the video. The kind of the video process, right? Where you would create a video up on the roof to show the customer, something they had never seen before, which is the roof that they had, and identify things that maybe the previous roofer had done wrong, or just talk about the ways that you're going to do it right. And then get that video in front of the customer, send it to them in a link somehow. I didn't understand all that, but it was somehow he's doing it. I don't know if it's an iPhone thing. He was always on an iPhone. Yeah,
this sounds really good.
Yeah, and then he also did the ground plan video, and he did a lot of video stuff. And I was like, this I think is something I can use, with my sales department to really kind of be a differentiator and kind of open up, who we are, and be more personable and allow for the barriers, the walls to come down with the customer a little bit easier, because now you're being the fearful person behind the camera that a lot of people are afraid to do, and you're giving them this information of their actual roof and showing them what it looks like and talking to them about how you're going to make it right or whatever. There was so many things, just showing hail damage. Even when there's hail, you're going around saying, look, this is the hail you have on your roof and it's all over. Right? Rather than somebody from the ground. Back then, man, I mean, I'm telling you, a lot of times you get these door knockers that come around and be like, yo, you got hail up on your roof. And the customers are like, what do you mean? Were you on my roof? You have a drone? What are you doing? They're like, no, you got hail on your roof. I can see it. You can't see hail from the ground, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was kind of the, thing. I'm like, okay, so talked to Adam Sand, and I hired him to come out here and work with my sales team to teach them the videos and get them over the hump. Me alone telling them that they had to do it or they should do it wasn't enough, but the fact that I hired somebody to come out there and teach them how to do it further edified the fact that this is the thing that you guys are going to want to do to further your career as a salesperson in my company and in salesman in general in the roofing industry. So having that consultant and paying somebody to come out here and do it, like concreted the fact that like Caleb knows, like it's already, this was 2019, like Caleb's already building this amazing company. We should trust him and like just break down the barriers to like do the new thing. One of my guys started doing it, dude, and just freaking crushed it with the videos. He was having the people that he sent the link to for the video shared so many times that he was getting referrals on top of referrals on top of referrals on top of referrals, so much so that I couldn't even send the guy a lead anymore because he already built a pipeline. I'm not kidding you, man.
That's awesome.
He built his own pipeline following this process that is so massive. He started doing this in 2019 and 2020 during the COVID. It grew so much so that in 2020 here, like we've barely given him any leads, and he's got well over 3 million in sales of his own pipeline.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So then with Adam Sand, he was here, and he didn't have anything to do for a little while, so he hung out a little bit longer, and I was getting to know him, which is pretty cool. He told me that he loves doing CRMs, and I was using a CRM at the time. And I wanted to talk about it because the problem with the CRM I had, not necessarily the CRM itself, but my people, is that I kind of pushed this on them, and I told them, you got to start doing this, fill in these properties, I need to know what's going on in my business, all this stuff. Because prior to that, man, I'm telling you, we ran our company off of Dropbox and freaking QuickBooks. Okay, Dropbox and QuickBooks.
Yeah.
So that was our CRM. Then it was a different one. Didn't get good adoption. Adam Sand was telling me that he does CRMs. It's something he really loves to do. And I was like, you do? I'm like, you've never said anything about it. Like, are you seriously good at this, or is this like something you're just messing with me? You want to get some extra money or something?
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. He's like, no, man. He's like, I built one for this company out in Hawaii. They're doing like 10 or 15 million in sales with this one that I built. And I was like, legit? I'm like, that sounds legit.
Yeah.
Then he started telling me about HubSpot and how he was working on trying to like start doing that. And I was like, well, dude, if we're gonna do this, like, you got to get me the new best thing. And so we ended up being his first HubSpot build out customer for a CRM. Mm-hmm. And now he's actually here in my office doing a second rollout, an update.
Right now?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What's up, Adam?
He's over there somewhere.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Adam's back. He's actually leaving today. He's heading out. He's on a long trip again to go to a whole bunch of other states and talk to a whole bunch of other people and help a whole bunch of other roofing contractors with all their needs.
Cool.
Yeah, if anybody needs a kick-ass custom-built CRM, like, you guys got to call Adam Sand.
You heard it here first, folks. It's really interesting. You had brought up a point of like bringing in an external party. In this case, it was Adam, but in a lot of other cases, it won't be Adam for a lot of other people. But just the legitimacy that affirmation from an external person will bring in mobilizing your team to actually do what it is that you've been asking them to do. Like that power of affirmation. It's funny because like I'm a parent as well, and I don't know if, in having 4 kids, you've ever had a situation where like you've been asking your child to do something at home all the time, and you get pushback, and then like you go to a parent-teacher conference and like she does that all the time here, and I was like we never have to ask her twice for anything. I was like
yeah, man.
Teach me your ways.
Yeah, literally. Teachers tell me that my kids are amazing. They're like the best. Everybody loves them. All this stuff. I'm like, man, they drive me nuts at home.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more that it's not always a situation where you're bringing somebody in because you just don't know. Like you had said, like the adoption of these processes, procedures, softwares, and the fact that you can get a team to actually use them the way that they're intended to be used is paramount to the success of whatever it is that you're implementing. It's garbage in, garbage out. I mean, you could have Adam, you know, if you brought in Adam to build you out a CRM, if you purchased any CRM of any kind, if you don't have your team actually on board and utilizing it, it's not Adam's fault, it's not this person's fault, it's not Job Nimbus's fault that it doesn't, you know, your company's not thriving because of it. You have to make sure that your team's getting on board, and if you bring external people in to help guide them and show them the way and affirm the messaging that you've got a much better likelihood of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, when I've always taken when I bring in a consultant or I hire somebody, the thing that I always look at is, you know, what are their intentions and to help my business. You know, how does that work for me? Because like I am very firm in the way that I want to conduct business and how I think it should be done. So when I look at these consultants, I look at like, are they going to help build my vision, or are they going to bring in their own and try and like change everything? Because a lot of companies out there, they have their whole program in a box, right? So like you pay for them, they come out, they tell you how it is, and if you're not prepared for that, you're going to waste a crap load of money. I hear of a lot of companies out there that are bringing in like all the different sales gurus. They might have had like 4, 5, 6 of them come through their office. You got to pick one, and you got to do the one that works with your market and your business to just change a few things. Like have your takeaways, right? Figure out how that consultant's going to help build your vision. Okay? If your vision needs some work, talk to them about what the experience they have with other roofing companies, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, Adam Sand is great because he's been to a lot of roofing companies. He's got a really good idea of what he's doing.
Yeah.
We definitely collaborated quite a bit on building out our systems and processes. He brings a lot of experience to the table with that. He's got a really good team behind him as well. Most people don't know that I think he employs, I think it's right around like 8 people right now, just in his roofing business partner. So he's got a solid team behind him, and it's growing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
always with a consultant, man. Like find somebody that's going to help build your vision, right? Somebody you can work on to build your vision.
You mentioned something in there that I think is very, very important, and it's like the collaboration. I've found over the years that the quickest way that somebody can run into issues with something being productive or it being a complete failure is there's an expectation. If I pay person A for this, I can put it on their plate, have nothing to do with it, and you know it should be done for me. It's one of, you know, and that's the end of it. And that usually is not going to be the case. Right? Whether you're talking about especially building a CRM, if you're talking about, obviously I do marketing, advertising, if you're talking about marketing and advertising, like there should be some sort of expectation that you should have a hand in it. Nobody's going to care about your business more than you are going to. And I think the more people that understand that, the better off that there will be. Trust but verify, right? Like when you're hiring somebody to do something and they're telling you these things, verify that they're the case, right? And like one more thing that you had mentioned as far as like where you got your education, or like I guess the confidence in some education from, as far as like online resources, YouTube, right? That's how you found Dimitri, that's how you found Adam Sand. It was exposure through these free platforms. Use good information that people are giving out for free. Like whether you're talking about manufacturers, you're talking about like roofing insights or sales and marketing, there are so many resources that are available for free. If you look for them and you put the time in, you have to put the time in, but most people won't, right? So, like for my YouTube channel, I base my content off of questions that I've been asked consistently over the years, questions that still come up from my clients every day. So my assumption is, okay, so if I've got 7 people asking me about this in the last 30 days, there's probably 7,000 other people that want to know the same thing. And then I'll publish it and it'll be like 12 views. And I'm like, why do only 12 people want to watch And there's some algorithmic things. It's like the YouTube channel is relatively new, and we're working on that, and the content velocity, how frequently we're deploying the content. But, there's a lot to be learned from a lot of great people that put a lot of time into those types of resources, and you could benefit immensely from them. And I think it's really underutilized. It's hard, right? Because there's so much shit that we're getting pulled in every different direction, and it's just information overload. So I think you have to be really intentional as far as how much time and where you're going to spend that time if you're looking towards free resources.
I feel like you have to take the information in, even if it's from somebody you don't know, but they have a different perspective and a different idea, or maybe it's some way that they do it in their market, and then you have to like put all of those things together with what you might think is necessary for your market, and try to like build a formula or a perspective, a whole perspective around the concept or the idea. So like a lot of times we're always looking to make sure like we're doing what's best for our customers, what's best for our sales reps, what's best for our employees, all that kind of stuff, to like have a good business, right?
Yeah.
And constantly I'm trying to build perspective and grow. Like there's so many different things that we've had to do in this company in the last 6 years, 5.5 years, to change different things that we were doing. But as long as you're not doing it to the detriment of your team or the detriment of your customers, you're more than likely going to come out on top. Change is absolutely necessary. I years ago, man, like I got into philosophy and all that kind of stuff, and I learned about this guy Heraclitus, and he, not in his own words, but over the years, because he was like 400 BC. I think his original words were, "No man ever steps twice in the same river." So what that came down to is that change is the only constant. Somebody years later coined that, or said that's what he was basically saying. And I got that shit tattooed on my fucking arm, because change is the only constant. If you're not changing, you're freaking dying, and you're going to be gone. Nobody will remember you. You're not leaving a legacy. You're doing nothing for your employees. You're doing nothing for your own future. You have to keep up with what's going on. You should be continuing to grow to benefit your employees. Give them an opportunity to like achieve something more than just staying as an installer, right? To just staying as a salesperson. Maybe they want to be a sales manager someday. Like you got to create those opportunities to leave a legacy for not only you, but even for your employees. Like they want to leave a mark too.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about that, man. But like my employees, like they want to leave a mark in this industry too. They want to do what's right, and they want to do it. They want to do it in the best way possible. So we adopt that culture, man. It's the way we are here. People are used to it. Plus, I got a lot of energy and a lot of ideas. So
yeah,
get on board. Let's go.
Well, I mean, dude, I couldn't agree more with the changes. The only thing that's constant, right? And sometimes it's very inconsequential change. Sometimes it's drastic change, and you'll benefit from. It can be challenging, right? I think let's not oversimplify like determining what you should change and when. So like be mindful of your business, and like you said, the context, be situationally aware. But you do have to lean into change, right? Because you can't. If you don't, it could cost you dearly, and it's your job as a leader of a company and the leader of a workforce, and you're responsible for those people and their families and things like that to keep especially the financial health of the company in mind, and make decisions that are going to better the company and those involved with it. So that's awesome. I said not too long ago, and maybe this was coined before that, I didn't find that anymore when I did a Google search, but money attracts talent and culture retains it. I found,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, I know past jobs that I've had where they've done very well, I've done very well financially, and it's like, I can't stay on my life. I don't care how much you pay me, I'm out, right? So you had touched on culture. So what have you done that has created that culture that people want to be a part of, they're legacy oriented, right? They're thinking of these things. Not a lot of people think of legacy, right? And all in all, they're just super happy being a part of Oberg Roofing because they believe in what you do and they believe in the values that you stand for.
Right on. So as of about this time last year, I actually only had right around, I think it was like 12 employees. In the year before that, I had 2. So this is all really new, and like even the concept of like culture and everything is like very on point for me because it's something I wanted to do, but I didn't know if it was necessary. 2 years ago, right? 2 employees. What do I need core values for, right?
Sure.
Subcontract the majority of our work, but a lot of things has happened in the growth since then. And currently, to date, having 45 employees, and knowing that with the growth that we had last year, that we were going to be hiring a bunch of more people and growing the company, I took the initiative to start with 401k with match, health and dental and vision and supplementary like Aflac insurance. So we offer all of these things just to give people in this industry the ability to know that they have health insurance, the ability to know that they're going to have a 401k that they can retire at someday, hopefully earlier than the projected, 65, 67 years old, whatever it is. I think it changed to 67 now. The ability to know that like if any incidental thing happens, that they're going to get some, incidentals. They'll be able to provide insurance for their family, their kids, everybody, right? Like I'd never even had a 401k until I started my own. I never had health insurance other than one that my wife provided for me previously from her employer. It's just not something that's ever been prevalent in this industry, and it's something that I knew that if I wanted to hire, recruit, retain, and then do what's best for my employees, that's the stuff I had to establish. So I did that first. That's something we started January. I think it was either end of December or January right away. We had the 401k and the health set up, and then as the year progressed this year, we got our dental, vision, and Aflac set up for everybody. So that's been amazing. Everybody loves it. It's not even that difficult to do. We do have like HR requirements and a lot of other stuff now.
Sure.
So there's a lot more to unpack there, but it's kind of boring stuff a little bit. So the other stuff that we do, like, okay, so David Carroll put out a post. He puts out a bunch of random stuff, right? And so he said something about, hey, have you guys ever thought about core values? And I'm like, yeah, man, actually I've thought about it for a few years, is what I was thinking in my head, right? And I'm like, I think I said something like, yeah, I need to get core values. And then Jessica Stahl from Ignite Results says like something like, hey, I got you, sending me a DM or something like that. And I'm like, oh, wow, cool, let's get some core values,
Yeah.
In talking to Jessica, she's like, well, let's talk about your business and your people. And she's like, core values is definitely something I do, but she's like, I do a whole lot more. And she's like, I really like if you got the time or the want to talk about your business. She's like, let's see if there's anything else out there for you. So we went through the whole thing, man. Worked with her and Melina to get the core values established, and now we're going to be rolling them out like quarter by quarter, so we don't just throw everything and just puke on everybody. Here's the core values, and then none of it sticks kind of crap. So what the core values does is it allows for all of the other culture building to just naturally happen. It brings, and if you do them right, like it includes everybody in the business to be like a family, a team, people that are watching out for other people, they're watching out for the customer experience, just like everything. They're very close and personal to me in my own kind of moral compass and all that kind of stuff. So I just love them. I think anybody who has like the want and need to do core values in a culture, don't waste any more time, man. If you got 10 employees, like just start doing it right now. You're gonna attract more people and the right kind of people. We've had, just this year in some of the employees that we've hired, we've had them actually bring in their spouses or significant others or other family members to come work here because they enjoy it so much because of the way we operate and the way just kind of like the team and the people are. The culture here is freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, that's dope.
Very blessed. All the people that I have here at Oberg Roofing. I mean, shout out to everybody that might be watching. At Oberg Roofing, love you guys. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and it's not just something you put on your wall, right? Like, these are our core values, right? You have to embody those, right? You have to have your finger on the pulse of the company and the climate within it to make sure that individuals are really, I guess, living their life through those core values. Would you agree with that statement to some degree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, everybody knows that you spend a majority of your time and your days at work with the people that you work with. Like, to have a culture and a team, a family, however you want to say it, at work means more than a paycheck. Okay? Like, if you don't enjoy your time at work, you don't enjoy your employees or whatever, if there's no culture, if there's no, growth, minded company there where people, might be able to move to the next level. If people are constantly wondering, like, I went to school for, finance, but they're, the owner's doing all the bookkeeping or whatever, right? If you're not allowing for that opportunity for them to want to move into something else, you're not providing enough for them and they're going to leave. Okay? They're going to leave. They're going to come work for me.
Let's go. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, and I can't tell you how many people I've had throughout the years are like, oh, I lost this person, I lost this person, I lost this person. Why? They got a better offer somewhere else. If you have somebody that makes a reasonable wage, I would argue they could even be underpaid as it relates to your market, but they're happy with the people that they work with, right? They look forward to coming in on Monday and maybe talking for 10 minutes after the morning meeting about their fantasy football team with, 3 of the guys that they work with or whatever the case may be, right? They just enjoy that atmosphere. They are so much more likely to stay. They're not going to leave for $1 an hour somewhere else, right? That relationship becomes more sticky because that's hard to find, right? It's hard to find somebody that's willing to pay you a little bit more for your experience, right? Those offers are ubiquitous in most instances, but to find a place that you're confident is going to actually provide a work environment like they say on that job description when they're on Indeed or whatever the case may be, I feel like most people doubt the likelihood of an employer being able to deliver that experience. So they know that they've got that in this company, in this instance, Oberg Roofing. So why would they ever want to leave, right? Not to mention, you're taking a ladle and just pouring on the value with health insurance and you're doing match and contributions. I feel like that's not something that's typical in the industry, right? Let me ask you this: do you feel like your experience, especially what you experienced earlier on in your career with the accident and falling off the roof, do you feel like that created a sense of urgency for you when you started your own, as far as coveting that as a priority?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few aspects that come into play there. Mm-hmm. So when I look at, I think I said that we have couples that work here. Yep. Some of them work out in the field, some of them work in the office. And, I look at young couples that they both really love it here and they are potentially going to have their own family. If I can't provide benefits for them, one or both of them are going to leave. And I don't want my people to leave. I get invested in them, not just money-wise, but in time and training. And, I really enjoy the people that I work with. That if I was not to put those things into place and lose somebody, that would suck. That's my fault. I screwed up. I should have done something else. I should have put those things there. I never want to look back and say I should have done that thing. right? That's like, that's one of the things that kind of haunts me, right? I never want to look back and say I should have, coulda, woulda. My dad used to give me crap about that when I was a kid, you know? Getting on you about doing chores or something like that, and you throwing out an excuse, and you'd say shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
It's stuck in my head, man.
Yeah. Love it. So what has that done in your recruitment efforts? I know that you said you brought in a couple partners in as a result of, you know, them experiencing firsthand, but what about people that don't know the company, right? How is that help?
So it helps a lot. One of the biggest things that we get when interviewing people is they look at a growing company and an opportunity to help build and grow with a growing company. One of the biggest things that we hear from everybody that we are hiring, you know, interviewing, everything, they're like, I just want to get on the train. Like, you guys are flying, you know, whatever, on the airplane, not a train. You guys are flying, you guys are soaring, you know. And
on a rocket ship.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been one thing that's been the resounding biggest thing for recruiting and hiring good people. The benefits is that icing on the cake, man. They can feel secure knowing that they're going to work for a company that cares about their employees and not just about the growth. Okay? If you do those things to build that foundation, it's not all about me as the CEO, the owner, and my paycheck, or the company and all of the things that we're trying to do to grow. It's the things that we do for our people. It's the things that we do for our customers. It's the things that we do that allows this thing to be the foundation and the strong rocket ship that it is, man, just taking off and not looking back.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. And like, culture is just so important. I can say it's all blue in the face. Like, you know, part of our interview process is I ask the candidate to pull out a pen and paper, or I'll provide them with a pen and paper if they're in person. It's like, all right, rank these things, right? Money, work-life balance, upward mobility, customer experience, right? Now there's 4 things now. Assign a value as far as priority of importance. And it's tough, right? Like if you're sitting on the other end of that, like, that's really challenging. But I want to see where people are at. Like, where is their mind at? Is this somebody who's going to say, you know, I'm culture oriented, and they just want it for the money, right? They want the position for the money. Because, like, I don't know, there's a lot of people that can fill that seat that would just want the money, and I don't feel like they're going to be vested as the next person potentially, right? Like, I want somebody who's going to become enthralled into that culture, going to become interwoven to where it's like a family, right? And I think those things are really important. Dude, you're killing it. Great job, man. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we get up out of here?
I mean, with any business, you got to know your people, you got to know your market, and you got to know, you know, whatever, like a little bit of what everybody else is doing to create a perspective to help build the vision to put everything together.
Yeah.
So if you can keep those things, you know, in place, I think like just about anybody could find the right formula in any market to make it happen. So that's about it, man.
There you go. So be aware, take bits and pieces, bake your own cake with it, right? Maybe tweak a little something, a little bit here, add a little bit of that. You know, but you don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Dude, that's really good advice. Very appreciative for you spending your time with us today, Caleb. And I had a blast, man. I hope you did too.
Man, I loved it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.